Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We're taking a closer look at the Environmental Stewardship Award Program and the impact it has on the success of the beef industry. Plus, find out how good forage management can improve the sustainability of your farm or ranch.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Each year since 1991, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and National Cattlemen's Foundation have honored innovative and dedicated cattle producers with the Environmental Stewardship Award. ESAP, as it's become known, recognizes the nation's best farms and ranches for their stewardship and conservation efforts. Here to tell us more about the program is Gary Price, a Texas cattleman and chair of the ESAP Selection Committee. Gary, thanks for coming to the show and thanks for your service to the ESAP program.
You bet, Kevin.
Well, begin by just telling us, in your opinion, why is the ESAP program so vitally important to the beef industry at large?
Kevin, it's really important to the industry to be able to showcase and to honor these great producers we've got all over the country. 7 different regions we have, and for them to be able to tell their stories, many of them are generational stories, of how they're not only taking care of the land, but of course how they're taking care of the cattle as well. So very important for the industry to know that and to see that.
Couldn't agree more. Now, you're chairman of the selection committee. Can you tell us just a little bit about how that selection process works?
Sure. Most of the nominees are nominated by their state affiliates, but they could be nominated by other organizations or they could nominate themselves. So we'll have those nominations from the 7 different regions, and then we'll study those as a committee and look at those in book form and, of course, online as well. And we'll study that and then meet, and then we'll judge those based on several different criteria.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about those criteria because what strikes me, there's so much diversity between a place like this and your place when you all won the award. And so what criteria do you use to be able to evaluate so many different kinds and types of operations?
Sure. Not only how they're taking care of the land, how they're maybe, like the place we're on today, how they're maybe putting cover crops in and utilizing the winter season grasses, but also obviously how they're dealing with challenges, whether it be in a water stream area or a creek area that is maybe high profile and has some issues, but also, of course, how they're taking care of the cattle as well. Health programs, how they're marketing their cattle, how they're utilizing, all of the resources that they've got on their ranch or their farm, wherever that is, how they're putting all that together. And we know that all of them have challenges that are very unique to their area.
And one other thing, you are such an eloquent spokesperson for this program. That too comes into play as one of the criteria, is that right?
That's right. Those winners are asked to talk to the media and be able to answer questions not only on a local basis, but on a statewide or even a national basis. And then they've done interviews that will be in print form as well. So since we received the award, there's hardly a couple of weeks goes by that we aren't asked, to do interviews.
No doubt. Now, we've been blessed with some long-standing sponsors of the program. Just how important is that to the long-term success of ESAP?
It's everything to have those sponsors, and they've been around, like you said, for a very long time. We need those, and they're just the heart of the success of the program, to be able to not only sponsor us financially, but to give us input of how the program could be made better, and we could not do it without them, and we're so thankful to have them.
You've mentioned the opportunities you've had. It is true, since you all have been selected national winner, how many years ago has it been now?
2012.
2012. Yeah. You've had a lot of doors of opportunity open to you and Sue and 77 Ranch at large to share the message. Tell us about some of those.
Sure. It's just been a really great opportunity for us, and we're really humbled still by the award. We've met so many great folks from all over the country and be able to visit their operations. We have many tours on our own ranch, and we always learn from each other better ways to do it. And just like the opportunity we have today to visit this farm here in Virginia and see what they're doing and be able to maybe take home some of those things that they're doing there and put those in their own operation, whether it be cover crops or clovers or whatever. So great opportunity. So thankful for that.
Well, thank you for your service to the industry and specifically for your dedication to ESAP. We appreciate it, Gary.
Thanks to Cattlemen and NCBA.
You bet. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the Environmental Stewardship Award winners, see photos and videos of their operation, or even learn how to nominate someone for the award next year, visit the website environmentalstewardship.org. And joining me now is our host for the day, Ronnie Knuckles of Overhome Farm in Virginia. Ronnie, thanks so much for inviting us to your place here. Tell us a little bit about the background and history of Overhome Farms.
Kevin, it's nice to have you all here today. It's a beautiful day today. My family's been on this farm since 1876, and I'm fifth generation. It was timbered in 1950. My father brought in a commercial cow-calf herd in 1960, and has continued that until he passed away in 2008. He passed away suddenly. I think he would have liquidated had he known he wasn't coming back, but he didn't. So my brother and I split the herd, had really no intention of getting into cattle at that time. I'd helped for 40 years. But really, it took his passing for me to realize I knew nothing about raising cattle. I was a helper, and that was all I was at that time. So it was a learning curve. I realized that what he had used as a farming technique was not going to work for me. That management practice just wasn't going to do what I was comfortable with. So I started exploring other avenues, visited other farms, and ended up at Monacan Soil and Water District as well as NRCS. Great resource, and they kind of laid out a plan that we could continue that put us on the path we're on.
Yeah, that's quite a story, and clearly conservation is a deep passion of yours, in fact one that earned you a Regional Environmental Stewardship Award. Why is it so important to you that you find and implement practices to conserve the natural resources on Overhome Farms?
You know, I think this is one of those cases, it's rare, that there is no negative. We did what was needed to do to clean up the streams and protect the environment. Every step of the way, I can translate that investment into improvement in my cattle. You know, they're drinking cleaner water. They're not standing, wasting, and drinking the same water they were. They are not able to hide in gullies and creeks when they're in trouble. I'm able to keep my cattle in smaller groups. I'm able to rotate and rest pastures, which I was not able to do before, which helped on weed pressure and other things. But just overall, the whole program, everything that we did for the right reason, I got benefits on a selfish reason. And it almost feels you a little bit guilty to get recognized for it when you benefit so much for what you do.
That's fantastic. We're standing in front of this electric fence. You've talked about dividing the pastures from 2 to 14. How important is grazing management to your efforts here?
Oh, I think there are the two steps of that program. One, you've got to grow it, but just as important as growing it, you got to manage it. And one without the other doesn't work. And, you know, to protect your better grasses, you've got to maintain a certain level of growth above the ground. You can't turn a group of cattle out on a big pasture and just let them stay there. By splitting this pasture is about a 6-acre pasture. I'll typically divide it into 3 or 4 sections. I give them enough for 2 days. They have to eat everything on that side of the wire, the good stuff as well as stuff that's not so good, before they move to the next section. And so in doing that, it kind of protects and keeps your diversity in the plant mix. And of course that gets into soil health and roots at different levels and what they're able to bring to the surface. The cattle will process that, put it back on the same ground they took it from. They don't put it all by the shade tree or the waterer. They've got to spread out. But it also increases your grazing potential, because if I give them the whole pasture, they're going to walk from one end to the other. They're going to lay wherever they want. They're going to waste wherever they want, and they're not going to eat that. So by restricting their movement First of all, they don't burn off as many calories, which helps on a weight gain. But also, I would say it extends the grazing maybe not twofold, but 1.5.
That's incredible. Yeah, what a testimony. Yeah. So from your perspective, what is the value of the Environmental Stewardship Award Program to the broader beef industry?
You know, I just think it brings attention to what we're doing, and not everybody has seen it or aware of it, and you would think that it would be just basically common sense, but it's not. And I think the cattle industry is probably on the last frontier. All the other forms of agriculture have changed and modernized and gone to more productive measures. Cattle you can do with very little investment, and so many people, well, it worked for my father, good enough for him, it's good enough for me. Why do I want to try something different? You know, I was willing to try because what I'd seen would not work for me. And I was like a blank slate because it wasn't my program, it was my father's program. And so it was easy for me to jump ship and get in another direction. But I just think it's to make it aware, make people see, hey, this is what is possible. I can do the right thing, but I can benefit from it too. Yeah. And I think that's what helps.
Well, your commitment to conservation and your passion for what you've done here is truly outstanding, and you've got a beautiful place. Thanks for letting us come and see this today.
Great. Glad to have you.
Still ahead on this special edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll hear from another past Environmental Stewardship Award winner about the importance of the program and what it means to protect your operations resources for future generations. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Have you ever dreamed of owning a brand new John Deere Gator? Well, now's your chance. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association is conducting an online auction for a new Gator, and all proceeds will support their efforts on Capitol Hill on issues that directly impact cattle producers. It's part of John Deere's long-term commitment to the beef industry and NCBA.
We actually have a sponsorship that we've had for many years with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. John Deere is committed to those folks. We're committed to the beef producers. We're committed to make sure that you have the equipment to do the job, perform very well, and we are making sure that we are supporting the NCBA every year.
There will be several Gators auctioned off throughout the year, so you'll have many chances to bid. Go to ncba.org and click on the banner with the John Deere Gator, or scan the QR code you see on the screen to place your bid.
Welcome back. Today, we're examining the Environmental Stewardship Award Program, specifically the selection process and what these winners mean to the beef industry. Now, in addition to the 7 regional winners selected each year, one of those operations is also named the national winner. Here's a look at the latest honoree and their stewardship story.
Cattle and a clean environment go hand in hand. This place wouldn't be in the condition it's in and improving each year if it weren't for the cattle. Hi, I'm Will Carter from Carter Cattle Company, located in Pensacola, Alabama, just south of Montgomery. My ancestors settled on this farm around 1820, and we've been here ever since. I'm the 6th generation on this land, and my kids are the 7th. Merritt, my son, who is 12, and my daughter, Sarah Elizabeth, who is 14. They carry a lot of weight in doing the day-to-day chores, and we're thankful that they are active and that they are interested in carrying on this farm.
We also own a veterinary hospital, and the 2 of us are the primary veterinarians there. The hospital is a good launching point to talk to people about farming and ranching. We take that opportunity to teach them and tell them what we do, how we manage the land, how we manage cows. We welcome people to ask questions, whether it's at the clinic or at the farm. We enjoy that. We're located in the Pensacola watershed. Because the creek runs through the farm, it's really important for us to manage our land and our practices to protect that water source. We've started using electric fencing to fence out the creek and minimize the access that animals have to the creek. We've run new water lines and put in water troughs to provide a clean source of water for the cattle. It also allows us to rotationally graze.
Our business is based on growing grass. We use cattle to turn a low-quality product into a high-quality protein. So to manage our grasses effectively, we need adequate rest periods and we need even graze periods. By allowing an increased rest period with this land, that increases our organic matter significantly. So the more organic matter we can build, the more nutrients we can retain. We take fairly regular soil samples on our pasture land to make sure the nutrients are balanced, that we get adequate growth. We also keep grazing records on the cattle. It allows us to look back over a year and see where we need to adjust for the next grazing season.
I think we have embraced the calling of stewardship because we love the land. It's hard not to do something that you love, so it comes natural for us. Some days are hard, but you love what you do, and it's so worthwhile. And with stewardship, just some small practices. The things we do aren't hard, they aren't rocket science, but they make a big difference.
My hope for the future of Carter Cattle Company is that it will continue to grow and continue to improve the resources that we have been blessed to care for. You know, the saying is, we just borrow it from the next generation, and it's so true. We've got to take care of this place so that it can take care of us and the next generation and the next generation and the next generation.
Here now is a former ESAP national winner, Jerry Doan of the Black Leg Ranch in North Dakota. Jerry, thanks for coming to the show.
You betcha.
Well, let's begin by talking just a little bit about your family operation there.
Well, we're pretty proud of our legacy there in North Dakota. My great-grandfather was a Canadian citizen. In 1880, he came into the United States, but in 1882 ended back in what was still then Dakota Territory, and then he homesteaded there, and so we're now 6 generations strong. You know, my grandfather actually bought a lot of land in the early 30s for $1 an acre. People thought he was crazy. And he worked 2 or 3 jobs off the ranch just to make it work. But now I've got 4 kids. All of them went off to college across the country and all came back. My daughter helps a lot, not directly involved, but all 3 of my boys are directly involved, and we've stacked some enterprises, you know, and folks ask me all the time, how do you get the next generation back? And I say, create some excitement and get out of the way. And that's what we've tried to do. And so we've got a lot of cool things going there, and we're proud of it.
You should be. Well, tell us about some of the unique things you do there in North Dakota that maybe set you apart from other operations. You're the only national winner that has ever come from North Dakota.
You bet, and we're proud of that and proud to represent our state. It's not necessarily about us, but all the good things North Dakota does. But, you know, we're a holistically managed operation because we need to look at the whole all the time on a ranch, in my opinion. And so we utilize planned rotational grazing. We've seen immense strides in our native range land. Land that was from season-long grazing was actually pretty depleted. And all of a sudden you got big blue stem moving up those slopes, all this diversity that's come back. You're able to increase your profitability and also improve your quality of life. And you know, we need to do that because we've got to have fun in this business as well.
You've also incorporated cover crops into your operation. I'm curious, tell folks what your experience has been in terms of how cover crops on tillable ground have helped you manage your native grasses as well.
Well, we have a 3-tiered goal when we got into cover crops, and we've been into them a lot of years now. It was the #1 cost for us guys in the Northern Plains are these winter feed costs. They kill us. #2, could we bring soil health back to depleted cropland? And #3, can we propagate the wildlife? And I'm happy to report we've really been successful on all 3 of those. Our goal is to never feed a bale of hay to a cow in the Northern Plains. And if we can do that, it'll save us anywhere from $200 to $400 per head. Now you have to have a backup plan. This year, we had over 100 inches of snow, 70 below wind chill. It tested us, and we weren't able to graze them as well. We're trying to graze them this spring. Sure. But in general, year in and year out, when you look at the big picture, our soil health has improved. We test our biology, and our biology is going like that. That's bringing the organic matter back. And then you tell that story to the consuming public.
So Jerry, you serve on the ESAP selection committee. Why are you such a strong believer in this program?
Well, NCBA does a lot of great things, but maybe in my mind, one of the best things they've ever done is the ESAP program. It's because we have got to spread the word about what we do in agriculture. We've had people from all 50 states and 40 foreign countries at our ranch, and I hear this from a lot of them. They think we ruin the rivers and streams, we're ruining the atmosphere, we beat our animals, and then if they spend a little time, they'll come up to me and they go, wow, your passion, your family's passion for improving the natural resources, for taking care of your animals is outstanding. And then they challenge me, and that's why I do it. Go tell the story.
Wow. That's fantastic. And thank you and your whole family for the great job you do representing all of us in agriculture. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll ask one of the sponsors of ESAP about the value they see in the program. Don't go away. We'll have more right after this.
Weeds will rob me of my investments. The weeds are not palatable to cows. They will not eat them, or if they do eat them, some of them may be toxic. So there's a return on investment by allowing there to be more grass available to be grazed by the cattle.
CattleCon 24 is marching onward to Orlando, January 31st to February 2nd, 2024. Have your say in the future of the industry, network with fellow producers, or connect with friendly faces. Plus, the NCBA trade show will be on site with over 385,000 square feet of the latest and greatest in the cattle business to help your operation stay competitive and sustainable. Learn more at convention.ncba.org.
Welcome back. For many, the view of cattle grazing in an open field reflects the ideal image of what it means to be a rancher. But it takes special effort and strong management to ensure cattle work in sync with Mother Nature and the available resources on the ranch. We asked some past Environmental Stewardship Award winners why it's so important to carefully manage their grazing.
Our business is based on growing grass. We use cattle to turn a low quality product into a high quality protein. And so our primary job is managing and growing grass. And we use a lot of different tools to do that. We keep that grass a little bit higher and not allow as much selective pressure on the good grasses, which increases our organic matter significantly. A lot of our land is sandy and it's porous and nutrients leach through, so the more organic matter we can build, the more nutrients we can retain.
We could not run our business without also managing this land the way that we do. Without the grass, there's no way we could afford to buy feed and feed these cattle. This land is our business, and that's why we take care of it. We look for the future, and we want to preserve it for future generations so that they have the same opportunities that we have out here.
A lot of people came in and sprayed it out, tilled it up, and started farming their grasses. And it's really important to us to keep these native grasses where they're at. Not only is it the right thing to do, but it helps our cattle enterprise also, right? So we can rotational graze through a lot of these big pieces of ground and increase our herd size by doing that.
We rotationally graze because it adds the component of moving our cattle faster, more kind of the system way even the bison would have done it, keep moving them. And so you always have fresh grass, higher protein grass, and it allows us to increase our stocking rates of our pastures without overgrazing them. And it keeps our soils healthy. We'll have a healthy population of dung beetles, earthworms. Our cow pies will magically disappear in short order. And it's a really cool thing when you get the whole system functioning.
When we give the ground time to heal and to rest, it really does make a difference for the rest period. It lets it just continue to hold that ground moisture and grow a little more nutrient-friendly product. And the cows do better. We'll actually be able to run more cows on a farm.
That's really what we do, is grow grass and manage land. And the cattle are our tool, both economically and practically, of how to best do that. You know, really what we are, grass farmers. We're growing grass, and the cattle are the harvesters and the tools that we sell it with.
As long as you are in balance, you'll always have the grass. And that's where the sustainability comes in, because if you take care of the grass today, you'll have grass tomorrow. You take care of it tomorrow, you'll have it the next day. And that's what it's all about.
Now, over the years, many winning operations have pointed to the Natural Resources Conservation Service as a key partner that helped them achieve their goals. Joining us now is JB Daniel of NRCS. And JB, I would just ask you, why has it been so important for NRCS to continue sponsoring and supporting the Environmental Stewardship Award Program?
NRCS wants to come alongside farmers and ranchers and help them achieve their production goals in their livestock systems, while at the same time conserving their natural resources there on their farm, and in many cases enhancing them above what they find them. So when we find outstanding producers like Ronnie, who's implemented conservation practices in the whole plan, it's resulted in improving and building that soil health, filling in the pastures with thick, vigorous forage. And those pastures then will absorb rainfall and minimize runoff. And all in all, it increases the overall productivity of that pasture unit. So this award program gives us a chance to recognize these outstanding stewards of the natural resources that are managing these grazing lands.
But you said it, how critical is it to begin with that producer who's both open-minded and willing to think a little differently about their operation?
It's absolutely critical to be able to work with people who are open-minded and willing to take recommendations about new ideas and techniques of management. When one generation changes to the next, it gives a great opportunity to kind of restart that operation. And when I can work with producers like Mr. Knuckles, and he's open to that, and he can implement those and succeed, when I'm then working with other producers and talking to them, they don't have to just take my word for it as a government employee. I can then refer them to people like Ronnie and say, talk to him about how it worked for him and what he's achieved with it. And that gives a lot more credibility to the recommendation and gives that new producer the confidence to try it, and so they can be able to succeed themselves.
What would your advice be to somebody who may be watching the show and wants to try to implement some new techniques as it relates to grazing management, but isn't even sure where to start?
Absolutely. First thing they need to do is go to their local USDA service center. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the district conservationist there with the Natural Resources Conservation Office. Just invite them out for a ranch visit and give them a tour of your ranch, show them your livestock, explain to them what your goals are for your livestock system, and ask them, is there any way they can help you achieve those?
And what would you say are some of the other tools or even resources that NRCS has that can help producers towards achieving their conservation goals?
The main things NRCS can do to help producers achieve their goals has to do with technical assistance, and then a follow-up of financial assistance. So the conservationist at the local office is trained to come out and do a grazing land resource inventory, so they can assess the soils, the forages and grasses that are currently there, assess and account for the livestock that are there, and then they can summarize that in a brief report recommending specific conservation practices that they know will help improve the overall productivity and the stewardship of those natural resources. After the basic conservation plan is drafted, then you can, as a farmer, you can apply for financial assistance. And this assistance comes down through the Farm Bill programs and initiatives, but talking with your local district conservationists, they can explain and direct you to the programs that are most applicable to what you're trying to do on the farm.
You know, there's a lot of people who would suggest that we need to take cattle off the land, but you come to a place like this and see what Ronnie has done, and it's hard to suggest that cattle aren't a vital part of a conservation plan. What do you say to that?
I think coming to good stewards ranches like this and seeing with our own eyes how he's managing these livestock on the grazing land sets a wonderful example for other ranchers across the state and nation, but as well to the general public. We all need to recognize that using the right management practices and managed grazing, we can raise our livestock on our grazing lands in a way that sequesters carbon in the soils, builds organic matter, improves the health and overall productivity of those soils, minimizing agricultural runoff from these lands, doing it in a way that's conducive to other wildlife that uses these lands for nesting habitat and pollinators. And when we can do that, at the same time, these ranchers are producing a product that's natural, it's local, and it's nutrient dense for us, the consumers, to enjoy and benefit from.
Thank you so much for coming to the show, and thank you for all you and the entire NRCS team does to help us as farmers and ranchers improve our conservation efforts. They've been tremendously helpful to me, and I know I'm speaking for lots of producers when I say that you truly are a valuable resource to those of us in the ranching business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if you have conservation practices you want to put in place on your operation, you should start by visiting with your local NRCS office about the technical and financial assistance they provide. Go to their website, nrcs.usda.gov, to find an office near you. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we've got expert advice on how to get the most out of your grazing acres. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today. This beef quality assurance tip is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Hi, Jolie Fitzsimons here to talk to you today about the Beef Quality Assurance Program and our online BQA modules. If you've been certified online before, you can now go back and look up your certificate or get recertified online. Go to bqa.org under the certification tab to get logged in. Don't worry if you forgot your password. You can reset it on the site or reach out to customer support for assistance. If you've never been certified before, we'd love for you to head to bqa.org today and get signed up.
The Beef Quality Assurance Program is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Welcome back. There's no doubt grass is a critical resource in the beef industry, which is why producers spend so much time and effort keeping pastures healthy. We asked some past Environmental Stewardship Award winners about the impact good grazing management has on their farms and ranches.
The benefits of rotational grazing are several-fold, but particularly you're helping Mother Nature take care of that grass first and foremost. If you look back in history and how the buffalo grazed this, you know, they would go through as a mass herd and graze it and leave and be gone for quite a while, and may not come back to that area for a while. So we're using the same concept as that in a way.
The land definitely benefits from cattle grazing. You can see responses in the grass as long as you don't overgraze them and damage them. A lot of times we've seen responses in areas that were fenced off for a while. They get a small amount of cattle grazing and they actually come back tenfold.
The more you graze and you graze it well, the fewer weeds come back. I mean, it's just amazing how it all works. Everything is connected to that land and to that health of the soil, the porosity of the soil. When we get rain, it goes into the ground. It used to run off, but now it goes in the ground, and it's really satisfying to see that.
Rotational grazing on our farm works great because it's a way to get the most out of the grass acres that we have available to us, but also improve the quality of those acres. not overgrazing and trampling them 24/7, 365 really allows for good root development in the grasses and the forbs. Because of the rotational grazing, the grass has really flourished and thickened up and essentially chokes out any problem weeds.
Our grazing plan, the foundation is rotational grazing. The more leaf area there is for the plant to have photosynthesis, the more it can grow both up and then roots into the ground. So if it has deep roots, it can protect itself from drought. So as we move the cows around, that helps the plants and also helps the cows.
Cattle grazing is extremely important. We've turned it around not in spite of cattle, but because of cattle. We use those cattle as a tool, and you don't have a lot of tools out here, and grazing is one of them.
We now have 36 pastures that we can rotate cattle through so that the majority of the ranch during the growing season, the cattle aren't on it. The grass is having a chance to recover. We now generally have, by measurement, more pounds per acre of grass on the ranch, and a lot of that is because of the amount of rest time that our rotation grazing allows our pastures.
And joining me now is Hugh Aljo, Director of Producer Relations for the Noble Research Institute. Hugh, thanks for coming to the show. Let's talk conceptually for just a minute, and just what is the value of good grazing management techniques for a farm or a ranch?
You know, depending on where you're at, it can mean a lot of different things. But the bottom line is if we can keep the soil covered, we're going to get a lot more water infiltrating into the soil. Directly, that means a lot more forage production. And if we give the right rest and recovery to our plants, we get a lot more production, which in turn relates to carrying capacity and profitability. So that's what we're really trying to achieve.
So tell our folks, does it take significant investment or lots of infrastructure to be able to make any sort of meaningful change?
Well, that's one of those myths that people think that I can't do this because it's going to cost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. What we typically would like to recommend is start with what you already have. If you can just shut gates and begin a good grazing rotation, do that and learn from that experience. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to go to that next step. What we will look at is what's that safe to learn. Find an area that's very productive, very forgiving. You can go in there and afford to make a little mistake and then try something that's going to work. And then the next step is try to find some experts in the area to look at where you can really invest strategically that's going to get the biggest impact. That's usually water and fencing.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of where you can invest, we're standing in front of electric fence here with a rotational grazing kind of a program. What are a couple of the concepts that people can begin with in terms of improving their grazing management plan?
Well, the first step is if you start with a fence like this where you're trying to graze the animals more strategically, yep. You want to make sure that you're keeping plenty of residual. After grazing residual, you know, we talk about take half and leave half. Mm-hmm. We're not just talking about take half of the whole plant, take half of the leaf area, which is that portion above that lower part of the plant.
I see.
Then allow it full recovery before you come back. Mm-hmm. So when you get to the point where those leaves, you look out there and you got that full flush and some of those older leaves are beginning to what we call senesce, turn colors there at the tip, that's a pretty good time that they need to be grazed so you can refresh in the pasture at that optimal time. But when you do it, it's almost like top grazing continually, at least till you get to the point where you're later in the season, okay, when you have to really begin to allocate over time, not just working with the season where you have plenty of moisture.
What would you say makes cattle such a valuable resource in managing healthy grasslands?
Well, they're part of the original ecosystem if we think of just large herbivores.
Okay.
When we start talking about, what we call the soil health principles, covering the soil, making sure we have plenty of diversity, being sure that we have minimal disturbance, or if you do, it's going to be optimal, being sure that you've got livestock properly integrated. The key thing that we really want to do is when we're grazing those animals is making sure they're cycling the nutrients, and you want to do it quickly. And then what we want to do is freshen the pasture so you get more of a solar panel, so you get a lot more energy cycling that way. Okay. And if we keep the soil covered with good plant cover, mm-hmm, whether it be from the plants themselves or the residual matter that's laying on the surface of the soil, we get more water going into the soil, better infiltration, and through proper grazing over time, that community dynamics, the diversity that we're looking for occurs, not only with the pastures, but also with the other animal life that we're also interested in, like the pollinators, for example.
Sure. So you serve on the ESAP selection committee. I'm curious, what impresses you the most about the applications you read in that process?
When you look at the applications of the producers that are on this ESAP selection nominations that we're looking at, these are individuals that have led or leading the industry. You know, these people that are have already learned from others. They're continual learners. You know, they're continuing to do something for the land, and they look at the entire picture, the whole operation. Not just one aspect, but the land is just as important as the cattle would be. The wildlife is equal balance of the cattle. You know, these are the guys that are interested in profitability as well as taking care of the land. That's pretty exciting, and they become leaders not only in their community but to the nation now when we bring them forward through the ESAP.
Thank you for all you do to lift this topic up to the rest of the industry and encourage all of us to adopt some of these principles. We appreciate that.
So we thank you. It's just a pleasure to be a part of this. You're working with great people, you're working with a great industry, and being a part of NCBA is always an honor.
Absolutely. Thanks. The farmers and ranchers that are honored by the Environmental Stewardship Award Program are making a difference in protecting the environment. You can see their stories and learn how to nominate someone for the ESAP Award by visiting the website environmentalstewardship.org. Still ahead, we'll tell you where you can go to find valuable resources to help you improve the sustainability of your farm or ranch. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, I'm Tom Elliott with John Deere.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the oldest and largest national cattle industry organization working to defend your interests in Washington, D.C. And there are big benefits to being a member. You'll get news you can use in the National Cattlemen, email updates in the NCBA Beef Bulletin, plus big discounts only for NCBA members. Join by calling 866-233-3872 or online at ncba.org.
Sustainability continues to be an important topic for the beef industry, and there are so many places producers can go to get valuable information to help them reach their sustainability goals. Here to tell us about some of those places is Josh White, Senior Executive Director of Producer Education and Sustainability for NCBA. Well, Josh, let's start with the basics. You know, there are a lot of people who would suggest that taking cattle off the land would be our best solution for a more sustainable climate. How can producers demonstrate just the opposite, that cattle are part of the solution?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. I think there's a couple of ways. You know, one of the ones that NCBA is really focusing on now is grazing management. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're here on a past ESAP award winner place, and we've got these great role models who are expert grazers of the land, and using those folks as spokespeople to share how they've improved the environment through grazing is one way that we can share with the broader world. But I think as a producer, when I'm thinking, what can I do to help? You know, something that we don't always like to do, and that's write some stuff down. Keeping records and being able to demonstrate progress over time, whether that's with our cattle care, performance, grazing, all of that matters. And we're working on our team to create ways that folks can do that, you know, easier, hopefully, and tools and resources with advice and online tools and things to help out with that.
You talk about tools and resources. There are a lot of organizations and entities out there that are offering many of these resources to producers. Where's a good place to start?
Yeah, that's, you know, depending on where you are, I think has a big role in that. You know, does your state extension team have a forage specialist that you trust that you can bring out to your place, or at least email or call with some questions? Some states have that resource, some don't. You know, I think NRCS with USDA is scattered far and wide. So finding those folks that know the grazing systems in your area that have really worked, but also the resources that might be available from them technically, or things like equip and other resources. I think it's really valuable whether you're looking at genetics or health or productivity on the ranch related to grazing, to have a set of eyes that's off the ranch come look, even if it's a neighbor that you really are impressed with how their operation looks or how their cattle are looking when they come to the sale barn or when you see them riding down the road. We could all do probably a little better job of pausing for a moment and saying, let's think strategically, who do I respect that I could have come out and provide a little advice, whether it's a paid professional or just a trusted friend.
That commitment to continuous improvement is a core part of sustainability. And I think another key element is the fact that sustainability is not just about environmental sustainability. We've been saying for years it's environmental, economic, and social. And a big part of that social sustainability is the people part of this equation. How does worker safety play into a producer's overall sustainability plan?
That's a great question, and we've had some experts come in on, for instance, our virtual stockmanship and stewardship that we did last fall, where we were talking about this issue. And there's a couple of components to that. Number one, I think training our employees, or maybe it's even family members, on proper stockmanship, or really any role that they're in. It reiterates to them that we value them enough to invest in training them. And because that takes some resources, right? It takes some time maybe away from straight up getting the job done each day. Now, hopefully that makes them better employee long run. The other thing is, folks that feel well taken care of are more likely to stay. There's a lot of good research on that. Some of our farm workforce, for instance, we have a lot of diverse minority folks that are working on a lot of, especially feed yards and dairies. There's been research on dairies that show that, for instance, a beef quality assurance certificate may be the first quote-unquote diploma that those folks have ever received. So that, they can really put a lot of pride in getting that education, but also increase the pride of their workmanship by just investing in a little training for them.
You mentioned beef quality assurance and the certification. The fact of the matter is you all are doing a number and have done a number of regional stockmanship and stewardship clinics that allow folks to come and get your BQA certificate right there. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, those events are fantastic. We've been all over the country. Of course, COVID put a little bit of a damper on that for a year there, but we have been able to get back out in force this year. We're going from Oregon to Ohio, so we're hitting the O's states, and Nebraska, Colorado, and New Mexico in between. So a lot of opportunity to attend one of those. We don't talk about this too much, but every now and then we get on here and talk about the Rancher Resilience Grant that will actually provide a grant for producers around the country to attend educational events. So be sure and check out that as well. As a producer from another area of the country, we'll help you attend some of these if they're not right in your backyard.
As we've indicated, sustainability is a multifaceted topic. What's one last thing? If you were to hone in on one key piece of advice, what is it that you want our viewers to hear when they hear the term sustainability?
Well, I think, we can't use the excuse that, well, everybody has their own definition anymore. Let's move past it. I think we've defined it just like you said earlier. It's about the people, it's about planet, it's about profit, it's about the animals. Taking good care of our operations and being good stewards. And we can stand up and be counted as people that do that by having a written grazing management plan, by getting BQA certified, by investing in our workforce and our communities. I mean, it's really not that difficult, and it's a thing that most of us are doing anyway. Make sure that you're part of that solution and that narrative.
Great advice. Thank you so much for coming to the show, Josh. We appreciate that.
Always a pleasure.
You can get valuable information about the sustainability of the beef industry on NCBA's website. Just go to ncba.org/producers/sustainability for more details. We'll have more Cattlemen to Cattlemen right after this. Stay with us.
Did you know you can get reimbursed for attending cattle industry educational events? The Rancher Resilience Grant helps cattle producers attend valuable programs such as Cattlemen's College and Stockmanship and Stewardship training sessions. Local, state, and national events qualify for the grant, and successful applicants can receive money back to help cover registration fees and hotel expenses. To apply for the Rancher Resilience Grant, go to ncba.org and click on the Producer tab.
Now, it's not too early to start thinking about nominations for the next group of Environmental Stewardship Award winners. Any organization or individual can nominate a beef producer for the award. As we told you earlier, a committee of cattle industry experts from in and outside the cattle industry evaluates each nominee and picks a winner from each NCBA region. The selection committee looks for both sound conservation practices and the ability to serve as spokespersons for the industry. You can download a copy of the nomination packet at environmentalstewardship.org. Over the years, there's been hundreds of photos taken as part of the Environmental Stewardship Award Program. These photos captured the winners in action, caring for their land and their cattle. For this week's Legacy Photos, we thought we'd share a small sample of some of these amazing images. These Environmental Stewardship Award winners are helping to make a difference every day. To join them as a member of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, just give us a call at 866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. Well, that wraps up this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.